everyone, I'm Bex. I'm a Luxury Organic Strategy Director at Verb Brands. Little bit of an introduction to Verb, as you might be wondering with a e-commerce and brand event, why as an agency we are actually here. But because we work with luxury and premium brands, we actually see a lot of the challenges that you might be seeing across your social and your e-commerce and your strategies really often. And it's a really interesting challenge into how we can actually combat these and elevate it for our brands. So just a little bit about Verb. We are premium and luxury specialists, but we're backed by the Crowd Group. So we're really proud of the fact that we have kind of like a global brand and global team, but we're actually active, especially within kind of like luxury and premium brands as well, which in itself is an entire challenge. So we actually work with a lot of really amazing brands as well. So Omega, Net-a-Porter Group, Aston Martin, so a real range from e-commerce through to lead gen as well. And across these, this is from organic social, organic search, paid performance as well. So really kind of like going through the entire funnel of marketing. And it's there we can actually find where the best kind of like advantages and strategies and channels are. So to start with, I guess, what is social search? And I feel very lucky that all of the conversations that have happened so far have really nicely teed up all of my slides. But of course, social search is looking at social channels that we have. And I do think, echoing Katie's point earlier, it's actually quite ironic that TikTok are using out of home to talk about social search. For those who've probably seen this, at least on your tubes, on your kind of like commutes all the time, TikTok are really going for it in terms of the search advantage as well. And as someone who has worked in SEO for 7 years, I think this was slightly terrifying to start with, that they might actually just be put in a box as Google. But actually, it's a really advantageous place to be at the moment, because it's actually meaning in terms of search that we can actually really expand our horizons in the different types of strategy. So rather than being scared of social search, I think as an SEO and an organic, it's actually just looking at search as a whole organically and how you can actually use these channels to your advantage. So having a look at what this means in terms of the landscape at the moment. And I think it is really building, and to be honest, Google in the last couple of years have started kicking off a little bit. There's more and more that's coming up in terms of updates, algorithms we were talking about earlier, and it's almost getting into a bit of a battle between TikTok and Google to see who can actually gain the most searches and be in front of everyone. In terms of SEO and the terms and the kind of like all of the different ways that we talk about things, again, as an SEO person, I always actually used to refer to us as the IT crowd in the corner. So you have the social team, so very exciting, and then you have the nerds in the back. But the exciting bit for us is that actually search is becoming a bit more of a stylish one. So in terms of how this looks in terms of the landscape, of course, it's actually turning to social platform for products, reviews, as talked about all this morning. It's actually people want to see people. So whereas previously you might have either gone in store, way back in terms of e-commerce, or you might have really gone to Google just to look for a product that you already knew you wanted to buy. The journey between purchase, discovery, conversion is kind of blurred in terms of it now, and it's actually really gotten longer, and it's got way more complex and complicated as well. And this is why it's really important to actually leverage the social engagement and just understand your audience. Your audience is different on social channels, it's different on search, it's different in images and videos, and it's really growing in a landscape as well. And I know we touched on YouTube earlier as well in terms of that, you know, if you search now, actually video searches are appearing even higher than actually just original kind of like results here. So it's actually managing to utilize these and tap into your different audiences. But not only is it looking at content from an influence perspective, an affiliate perspective as well, but it's actually making sure you have a consistent brand experience. So a really big challenge that we find with a lot of our brands is actually that they have this amazing content on social channels, but it doesn't actually line up to what people are seeing on a website, or there's actually just nowhere for people to go. So you're landing on this content and you're finding it, but where are you taking people after that? And we know internally the biggest challenge as well is sign off. And the problem is with social, there is no way to kind of always quantify that as well. So it's actually making sure that it's a consistent brand experience for all of your users, all of your audiences, creating that shareable content. And then of course, they actually come as unpaid brand advocates, because that's how you're finding them as well. So having a look at the audiences, and this is honestly, I know people were talking about using the word authentic earlier. I'm actually scared that I'm using the word understanding your audience too much now, and it's only January, so I feel like I need to tone it down. But in terms of actually how that looks, it is very much in terms of organic search and social, how their preferences are changing. Again, Gen Z, I think, use TikTok more than kind of like their actual doctors at the moment to like look at how ill they are. So that's really reassuring. But in terms of search engines, it is like 42% are actually kind of like male when looking on Google, things like that. I won't be rude, but maybe just a little bit behind. And then actually it's females that are having a look at the retail websites, brands, kind of like social channels as well. So it's really kind of like staggering in terms of what people are looking for. But again, depending on your brand and what you're selling, but also what you want to sell. So it's not just products anymore. It's actually kind of like a long-term funnel and relationship. It's actually understanding where your audiences sit in terms of all this. And this is looking at it from a statistic point of view as well. So we've actually had a look at loads of our data to understand where these audiences sit, because it's only then are you actually going to be able to utilize the channels and find the right content for them. Not a surprise, again, TikTok is emerging as the most preferred platform in terms of fashion and beauty. And this is having a look across Instagram, Snapchat, X, as we say. Probably don't talk about it as much now. No. But actually, Instagram is still a massive kind of like channel in terms of aesthetics, kind of like reviews, products. If you don't know, like myself, if I'm really just unsure of what I'm going to wear, like today, I actually just go on Instagram and just kind of like have a look through, get some inspiration, whereas TikTok is the one that's actually turning more into a search engine. So people are actually searching long tail queries of what they want to be looking for on here. And we've really seen a massive boom in terms of this. Whereas X has actually seen the most growth when it comes to kind of like a male audience. And again, I think X, Reddit, and not to say or not to disregard actually Pinterest in terms of organic search as well. I think in the next few years, Pinterest is going to boom in terms of kind of like what people are searching for. You've been able to collect again all of the different things that you like, your interests, create your own boards, things like that as well. So I think in terms of search and building those communities as well, that's been talked a lot about, creating a community on all of these channels is really important. But again, it's just understanding where your demographic is at the moment, but it's actually understanding where you want to be as well. So everyone has their existing audiences as a brand, but actually how do you level up from that as well to make sure that you're actually staying in the evolving landscape as well. Of course, we have entered the era of influencers. So once upon a time, it was very much a PR landscape. What was printed in editorials and printed online was very much hearsay. That's where you looked at in terms of your inspiration. And what you were going to buy was very much a PR and editorial focus. But this really has come all the way in the last few years as well. And the main thing is people want humans, they want that community, they want that relationship. And this is a massive part of it, and this is a massive part of any strategy and how brands can really elevate their strategies as well. So it's almost combining all of these things. So it's actually understanding and not just jumping on the latest trends from an influencer perspective, but actually how can you encapsulate all of these things? How can you actually take your people, the people that love your brand, the people who might love your brand, take that and kind of combine it with an editorial perspective, the out of home, the organic landscape is completely kind of like evolving all the time. And how can you actually combine these to make sure that you're elevating your brand in a really saturated landscape? Because let's be honest, there's just so much out there at the moment, and that's why people are searching, because you no longer can just find one product, and people want to review as well. With so much out there at the moment, you want to make sure, especially with the climate that has been changing as well, that your brand is at the forefront, but you're actually helping them out at every stage of that journey. So why is your product actually different to others as well? And that's a really big part of it. Of course, as we mentioned, TikTok and Instagram have seen a massive growth, and it's some brands in particular that are really kind of like embodying this as well. And in terms of purchases as well, obviously TikTok Shop was mentioned earlier, but it is about that long kind of like funnel as well. So example, when we work with client Aston, can't really sell cars on TikTok as much at the moment, but it's very much actually understanding how we can change a brand perception through social as well, especially if you are a premium brand, you might have been around for a while, but actually how do you then tap into new audiences that are evolving all the time? I think for, again, like Aston or Omega, with these kind of like high value pieces, people and those existing audiences might not have TikTok, but it's actually tapping into the younger audiences and the demographics that are really utilizing these. And that's how, again, we can find out who those audiences are and actually tap into the trends as well. So beauty talk, skincare, there's all of these different trends that are happening at the moment. Some of the brands are really kind of like smashing it. As we mentioned to the start, it's these brands that are actually embodying it from a personal perspective. If you think about these brands, they have a face behind them and they're actually really utilizing that audience. I've said it again. So what types of content are performing best on these channels? Video tutorials and creative tangential content are actually outperforming SERPs now. So again, as an SEO, terrifying, but it's a really kind of like great way to talk about how people are using your product, and it's that long form as well. So it's being more creative with what you have, and it's actually utilizing that, and it's understanding from that kind of what is being engaged the most with from your audiences. Raw and unpolished content as well. So as it was mentioned, people don't want to just see a kind of like a bog standard person that's on model on every single website, every single retailer, every single social channel. They want to see how it looks on people the same as them. But actually it's using this content and the engagement aspect of it that's really going to help elevate your content strategies as well when it comes to beauty in particular. And 44% of TikTokers use their content as informative as well. So there's loads of studies out there at the moment in how people are actually utilizing the different forms of content. So reviews, a lot of people at the moment will probably use TikTok or Instagram even for like where to eat in certain places. I know I went to Prague recently, and actually rather than use Google, like you do look at restaurants in Prague on TikTok. People want to see people reviewing stuff as well. And it is that personalized aspect of it as well. So it's understanding where you can actually levitate on the different platforms. So how are people searching for your brand or similar brands on TikTok versus how are they doing it potentially in YouTube versus on your site as well. And it's tapping into each of these. It's going to make a really holistic strategy. So taking that, how can you actually optimize these and take it within to your business as well? So we've kind of come up with some key tips on how we'd actually want social and search to harmonize together. And I think a big takeaway for this is actually just almost not siloing them anymore. It's actually just search. It's search as a whole now. All of them are just an organic and positioning to be an organic strategy. So the first one is overarching content planning. So this is a really big one that we've been pushing with a lot of our brands at the moment. And it goes back to the whole teams being a bit more siloed. You have your social team that have got their content and they have such a drive to kind of like get that engagement with it as well. And then you might have your organic team, which are looking at editorial, and then you might have your PR team that are looking at something else. How can you actually get the best of all of these channels harmoniously? And it's actually by taking some overarching content plans, tapping into the key moments, the search trends that you're seeing as well. And these can inform your social strategy, and whether that's on site that's linking back to your social channels, or whether it's your social channels linking back to your site. It's really key to tap into these trends and actually use your own data. You as a brand hold the most data than anyone in terms of your audience, because you have it. You have it in analytics, you'll have it on Instagram, you'll have it in different platforms. And I think a really big thing with TikTok is that they are actually launching more ways to understand your performance. I think to start with, it was a bit of a kind of like finger in the air, guess, hope the engagement's up, but don't actually know how that's converting. But they are looking at ways now that actually you're able to look at the impressions and the data a bit more like GA as well, which will be really great for all of our brands. Embedding social on your site as well, and this goes back to having your social strategy feeling quite siloed to your website. So a lot of sites are very different in terms of their aesthetic and their look to your social channels, but actually bring that social onto your channel as well. Bring that onto your website, and that's where it's going to feel more holistic. It's going to feel like you understand your audience and your relationships that you're building with them as well. And creating UGC on your product pages. So this is one, again, that might be more in terms of a development factor, but it's really, really beneficial in terms of your audiences and understanding kind of like where their vision's going to be from the product, how they look in it as well. But it's actually really good from an organic search perspective as well. With Google, the algorithms are absolutely teeming with the rise of AI. And there's going to be more and more in terms of how the organic landscape is changing. And it's actually the brands that take this on board and start building with it that are actually going to be rewarded for it ultimately as well. And actually expertise and authority are massive ones in terms of how your content is viewed from an organic perspective. So if we think about how we can align the content strategy across the platforms, it's actually understanding, again, oh my God, understanding your audience, the customer experience. So as mentioned earlier, but Lululemon do this really nicely. They have a lot of course like brand partnerships and endorsements, but they actually really make sure that this is across both the channels as well. It's a huge opportunity when you create this amazing content from a social perspective to house this on site as well. Make sure that when people are searching for it, they are actually finding the content. We find a lot of brands will maybe have their products gone celebrities or kind of like in partnerships and these amazing things that they have across their social channels, but they don't have it on their site. Why are we missing out on that opportunity to actually take that step further again and show? how these stories are from a long form perspective as well. Social is very much snippets of things. It's kind of like that digestible small bits there. But actually, people on websites or YouTube even are actually looking for more long form content. They're wanting to really embed themselves in it as well. Leveraging search trends, again, is a massive opportunity that a lot of people don't use at the moment in terms of Google Trends, kind of like keyword planner, at the risk of sounding too nerdy again. But this is how we can actually tap into when we pitch this stuff as well. And it's kind of tapping into all of the different layers. So it's your search demand, it's also the search highlights. It's a really great feature that we're seeing more and more on TikTok as well. So if we have a look at the search trends on the left, this is having a look at how do people search for collagen skincare or winter skin kind of like routines throughout the year. And you can clearly see massive peaks in when people are searching for these things. And from an organic perspective, we always say to try and actually push this content out about kind of like a couple of months in advance, make sure that Google has time to rank it, understand your content. But actually, if you align this with how people are searching for it also on social channels, this means that you're really kind of like catching it at all angles in terms of that holistic strategy. So at the moment, in terms of search trends as well, so this is just looking at spring nail trends, it's actually showing these search highlights and it's almost giving you the information, like this is exactly what people are looking for. This is the sort of content people are looking for, types of visuals, and you can actually then start embedding this into your content strategy as well. So not only can you have it on site, you can actually push your content around the collagen skincare. As we were talking about earlier, in terms of people aren't just looking for a collagen product, they're looking for what is the best, how do I use it as well? And this really helps in terms of using this historical data to forecast as well. Again, if you're trying to get sign off with internal stakeholders, we understand that is a challenge. But if you can actually back this up with data, I think is a really great way of doing this as well. You can show this is how much we would expect to see in terms of the traffic if we can actually push it out at a certain time as well. And this is what we're seeing from a search perspective. Tying it in with upcoming industry trends as well. So again, the beauty and fashion landscape is going at a rapid speed at the moment. But if we can actually keep on top of those trends and work again with your PR teams, if you have newsrooms as well, this is a really great opportunity to tie both industry updates. So it might not just be winter skin routine or kind of like spring nail trends. I think ballet core is one for this year. And there's so many different kind of like industries. So how do you take ballet core or different nail trends and actually tie them together, create some evergreen content that you can keep updating, and it shows that, again, you as a brand are at the forefront of these things. And then using the search functionalities across channels as well to really capitalize again on those search habits. So how are people using kind of like TikTok? If you're having a look at the search bar, this is basically the new Google. And actually, if you drop down, if you just start typing things, what actually comes out then is basically your keyword research. So what is coming from spring nail trends? It might be spring nail trends 2024, ballet core design, ballet core dresses. If you look at the search trends that do actually come down from TikTok, that is your research. You feed that into your content across your visuals, across all of your different platforms and your websites as well. And you know exactly what people are tapping into. And again, if you aim to launch any content on site a couple of months prior to the season, this just gives it more room to grow as well. If you're able to publish content, but you do it just at peak. So if we know that people are actually going to start searching for winter skin routines around kind of like November, if you launch a piece in December, you've probably missed the boat a bit in terms of that. And there will be other content that's going to be ranking first. So do try and launch your content a couple of months earlier if possible. Again, we appreciate the lot of brands getting a kind of like a long tail sign off. Not the easiest challenge. It's more like a 2-day turnaround, publish now. But if you can have a look at evergreen content and whether that is content that might just be republished every year as a quick win, that's going to really mean that you can capitalize on it. So having a look at how we can actually strategically enhance this then. Long tail queries will actually drive your search content. So it's the how, what, where, why that's really going to elevate this. So as much as people might have classically searched for just a wedding gown or kind of like maxi dresses, it's just not there anymore. There's just too much out there and people are really looking for those long tail queries in order to find what they want. And people almost want to be kind of like having different options but understand what they are as well. Using the search bars to understand the search behaviors as we were looking at there. How are people searching for this? Instagram is slightly behind in terms of this. TikTok's really dominating it. But using those search bars as well in terms of TikTok, or YouTube as well, they're really, really beneficial to understanding how people are searching. hashtags as well. So I know that a lot of people are using these and a lot of brands are using these, but again, they're actually really similar to SERPs in terms of what you can actually include, always you do as a keyword on a page, is actually going to help how you're ranking in terms of the algorithm. So if you're including the right hashtags, ones that have been found from your search, from your keyword research, and you're actually utilizing those within your content, it's actually really going to help that algorithm as well in terms of boosting your profile, boosting the content that you're doing, and making sure that it can actually rank as well. Recently, we've actually started seeing as well, of course, TikTok videos are actually coming up in search now. So when you're Googling on your phone, you are getting TikTok videos come up. I think this is Google just kind of like waving the white flag and being like, we know it's going to happen. Just come on our platform now. We'll take it. But it's actually understanding this, and this is very much a long tail as well. So if you're posting on socials and you're posting on TikTok, why not get the benefit of both and just make sure that you can actually rank in SERPs as well? And ensure that content is actually tagged and optimized with keywords as well. So a lot of huge brands tag a lot with their brand hashtags, but it's actually going one step further again and making sure that it's tagged up again with the different products, making sure people can go to your site, they know where they're going, and long tail queries again, but making sure they are relevant as well. So a trend is great. A trend is only going to last you so long in terms of how many times people are going to search for it. And with there being so much content out there as well, it's just making sure that you can make it as relevant as possible to make sure you're getting in front of the right audiences. So integrating your search or integrating your socials onto your e-commerce site as well really enhances the engagement that you can get. So again, we want to make sure that your brand is holistic across Instagram, it's holistic across TikTok and your website as well. And having this content is an amazing way of showing that as well. And it means that people that do land organically on your site from a Google perspective can actually then go through to your social site. So it's actually really improving the visibility for that as well. And again, it's a lot easier for you to actually navigate and understand the engagement of people clicking through from your website to your social channels than it might be vice versa as well. So it's a really good indication of how much people are engaging with your socials from your site as well. And in terms of the different products as well, a lot of brands are doing this really well at the moment, but it's great to actually show the different products, your feed, a lot of this user-generated content that we keep talking about. How do you make sure that it's on site as well as through to your socials so they can understand both the channels? It's making sure that it is, of course, social proof in terms of the aesthetics and how we want it to be viewed. There's also real-time content. So a challenge again with websites is actually getting content on that's constantly uploading, it's constantly fresh, because of course there's so much going on. You've got trade, you've got stakeholders, you've got so many different teams that are all trying to do the same thing. Everyone's got KPIs, but we all have one goal in similar, and that is of course the awareness. So having your real-time content embedded on site is a way of keeping your content fresh without actually constantly having to write more editorial, get more pictures and get more visuals on there. And of course, my favorite is organic rankings. So in terms of the Google rankings, you are going to do better if you do have fresher content on there and you're keeping them holistically combined. Google, again, with the rise of AI, is very much viewing content more thoroughly in terms of, is this generated by AI? Is this being duplicated across different sites? But by having your unique content, your unique social content on there as well, it really helps kind of like show that you are an authority, and this content is yours and yours only as well. The user-generated content on a product page, again, is massive in terms of really showing users how your products are viewed, how they can be. And again, just really combining the two strategies together. So we see a lot now with things being so saturated that actually bounce times are becoming more and more quicker. So people might come onto your site but bounce off because it's not what they're looking for, they're not really engaged with it, there's not enough information. But a really nice benefit of having this UGC content is, again, showing your brand advocates. These are people who love their brand and they show it at their best at the end of the day. And what other kind of like better way to drive those conversions and drive how people are viewing the content and build those long-term relationships that ultimately end in revenue is by actually showcasing these products as they are showcased on social on the site as well. And not only this, but it shows a really great range of opportunities for cross-selling as well. So it's not just a one-off product. How can you purchase this whole outfit? Again, a lot of brands kind of like on a social perspective might add the different product codes within the images or kind of like within the captions. But if you can actually show them on site, all of these together, it means such an ease of user journey. It's just better for your users. It's more kind of like streamlined as well. And it shows that you understand kind of like the best pieces and how things are looking in terms of a trend perspective. So in terms of the top takeaways from this then, we always kind of like go with using the data to inform the strategies. So again, using the engagement that you have from your Instagram, your social channels, what actually is the content that people are engaging with the most? Because if they're engaging with that content the most, there's an interest there. How can we actually take that onto your website and vice versa? What pages are actually driving the most on your website? And actually kind of like how can we bring that onto your channels as well? So really kind of like tapping into the data, asking other teams what they're seeing, and even from a paid perspective, of course, as well, is really going to help understand how you can inform all of these strategies, but actually look at it from a data and a revenue perspective as well. Diversifying your content as well as a takeaway. So it's not a case of just lifting and putting your content from TikTok onto your website. It's actually taking the diversification of it and understanding as well. So what performs on TikTok it's not necessarily going to perform on your website, but you can understand how the engagement is and then potentially make it more long form on your website as well. So joining up your user journey, so it's taking the data, diversifying that content, and then making sure that it's actually a streamlined journey. So how people are going from social channels onto your website, making sure there's no blockers in between as well. People are going to bounce off if they don't feel like they're going through the same brand. So making sure these are really streamlined will help ultimately boost those conversions and also help retention as well. People keep coming back if they love the brand and they find it easy. And finally, engagement. So really making sure that from a prioritization bit, it's understanding that engagement. I know everyone will have meetings where they have to kind of like show this back to people in terms of what is being engaged, but how can you do that across the whole brand as well? Because ultimately, the more you can actually do from a social perspective and drive that from even a PR perspective, you're going to actually help the website itself. So you're going to get more people linking to your site. You're going to be really kind of like high in terms of authority. And that's just going to mean that your brand as a whole is going to be able to really gain that visibility and authority from a longevity perspective. And that is it. Thank you. I'm going to get some water.